Ekadasi Devi ki jai, Shri Radha Muralidhar ki jai. So I'll just immediately jump right in with our Mangalacharna, as always. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So it's so wonderful to be with everyone again. Um, I feel like this morning I'll kind of be brief because Sachinandan Maharaj is also speaking later today, and I don't want to use up all that time. So I feel like we can be brief and then all gather again at 9:30 in order to hear Sachinandan Maharaj. So our last two Ekadashis were dedicated to Lord Nityananda. So our next two Ekadashis, this one and the next, will be dedicated to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I wanted to read with everyone kind of a well-known story from Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, but one of those stories that is able to constantly instill hope and faith and all of the best things. So I feel like when we hear these pastimes, there's always a small intro. And there's a small prologue before these pastimes. Usually you hear, come and hear the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Lord Nityananda, or come and hear the pastimes of Sri Krishna, which can dispel all misery, clear away all sins, and give one happiness at heart. And so I feel like we need some of that. We need something that's going to dispel all of our anxieties and instill a wonderful just sense of shelter. So, as I said, this is a well-known pastime, but I thought that we could experience it together. So these are from the childhood pastimes of Sri Chaitanya when he was just Nimai. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat says that all of the ladies gathered and they told Sachi Devi, you've had so many girl children who have perished. Why don't you name this child Nimai, this born child? Why don't you name him Nimai so that all of the bad karma that has followed you around will be eradicated? And I remember thinking, what an interesting thing to say to a mother. I think no one would know better than her the experience of the children who had previously come to her and then left. No one could understand more than her. So to me, it was kind of a no-brainer to tell her, oh, you've had so many children that have passed away. Why don't you name this one Nima in order to try and keep this child safe? But you ever get into a community and people say things and they mean well, but at the same time you're like, what kind of thing is that to say? But it kind of reminded me that no one is exempt, even up until the Mother of God. So these things happen in communities in general, whether spiritual or otherwise. These things happen. But this pastime, the parents of Nimai were quite confused. They would often hear the sound of tinkling ankle bells. They would hear celestial sounds and conch shells and all things following their small child. Right? They hadn't put any anklets on him, but they would hear these ankle bells throughout the house, and it would sound celestial, and they would think, who is this child? This is our same Nimai, who got so upset with his mother when she tried to feed him non-Ekadashi food preparations on Ekadashi. The same Nimai who stubbornly stomped his foot, makes a fist, and says to his mother, "Oh, mother, if you really love me, if you have any love for me, you will always observe Ekadashi. If you have any love for me at all, you will never feed me grains on Ekadashi." And so it is today, even on our altars. Sometimes Gornitai gets separate dishes on Ekadashi. Shri Shri Radha Krishna don't have to fast because they are Radha Krishna. But Mahaprabhu, he adamantly observes Ekadashi, even from a young age, and just due to his own wishes. Because it was his desire to uplift and exemplify these days, and to exemplify what it meant to be a Vaishnav. So they say that one day, a most pious mendicant Brahmin was wandering to various holy places in search of Krishna. He worshipped the Lord with his 6-syllable Gopal mantra, and he would only eat what he had first offered to his Gopal deity. In the course of visiting various holy places, that fortunate Brahmin arrived by providence at the house of the Lord. The matchless effulgent Brahmin had a deity of Bal Gopal and a Shalagram Shila hanging from his neck. He constantly chanted the name of Krishna while he kept his eyes half closed and internally relished ecstatic love for Govinda. When Jagannath Mishra saw the effulgent Brahmin, he respectfully stood up and then offered obeisances. Jagannath Mishra received the Brahmin with the etiquette due to a guest. He personally washed the Brahmin's feet and then offered him a proper seat. After the Brahmin was comfortably seated, Jagannath Mishra asked him, "Where is your residence?" The Brahmin replied, "I am a wandering mendicant. I go wherever my restless mind takes me." With folded hands, Jagannath Mishra said, "Your traveling is for the benefit of the world." And this calls into mind the idea that spiritualized people don't necessarily need to go to holy places. Usually, they say that everyone goes and flocks to holy places in order to wash away their sins. But this is not the case for spiritual people. They don't actually need the holy places to clear away their sins, but instead now they become those places of pilgrimage and they bring them with them all around the world. Such was the case with our Srila Prabhupada, who made even a dark corner of the world like New York City a place of pilgrimage. Right? We now have places of pilgrimage where Srila Prabhupada walked, those places where our movement began, those places where Srila Prabhupada, he saturated these places within dark, unknown corners, right? They would be spiritually unknown. There would be nothing spiritually wonderful about this place on the eastern coast of the United States of America. Right? Usually our Lord had not advented here that we know of. But Srila Prabhupada brought him. And so he saturated these places with his very own love of God, made these places incredibly holy. And with Gitanagri, yesterday was according to the Western calendar, the appearance of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And he was so adamant about making Gitanagri a place of pilgrimage. This place that Srila Prabhupada desired would become like the city of the gods and all kinds of auspiciousness. This place where he wanted a farm community simply dedicated to Krishna. And so many people would think, at the end of my life, I'd like to go to Vrindavan or go to Mayapur, go to some holy place. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj made a very, very firm point that This is my place of pilgrimage. This is my holy city. He said, how is it that I could give my life to these places, but then at the very end, when it counts, go away? So he was determined to really have all of us put our faith in these places as places of pilgrimage, even outside of the holy cities. So this is, Jagannath Mishra is saying to this Brahmin, your traveling is for the benefit of the entire world. You're there to enliven the places that are forgotten. Today I am especially fortunate. Please order me, and I will go arrange for your cooking. The Brahmin replied, please do whatever you feel suitable. Jagannath Mishra then happily arranged all sorts of palatable ingredients. Jagannath Mishra and Shachi Devi nicely cleaned the kitchen and kept all the ingredients ready for cooking. Satisfied with this arrangement, the Brahmin cooked and then sat down to make an offering to Krishna. Sri Sachinandan, the super soul of all living entities, then decided to give darshan to the Brahmin. As soon as the great Brahmin began to meditate, Sri Gaura Sundar came before him. The Lord was naked, and all of his limbs were covered with dust. His eyes were reddish, and his hands and feet were most beautiful. The Lord smiled and took a handful of the Brahmin's rice. He then ate the rice as the Brahmin watched. So our beautiful little Gaura Sundar, so sweet, so tender, also incredibly naughty. And because it's so hot in India, this is why he is mostly naked. You ever go to a friend's house and you see their kind of newish baby's like 1 or 2, just walking around, have like a diaper on, really sweet though. Sweet, chubby limbs. But now what do you do when you're just trying to perform your devotional service? And in comes the child. They reach in, imagine, just before you can make your offering, you've made the plate so nicely. Like, when we would cook for Shri Radha Govinda, I remember first learning, even from a young age, like 13, 14, we would help cook feasts. And the emphasis was on presentation. Shrikanta, who was a wonderful cook in New York for many years, also Kirtan Guru, he would put such an emphasis on presentation. He would say it has to taste nice, but it also should look nice. And so sometimes there would be a dish that he had finished, and he would look at it and he'd say, no, I can't offer it like this. And then he would go and chop up red and green bell peppers. And then he would sprinkle it in the dish. He said, now it's done. And we'd say, Uncle, does this impact the taste? And he's like, oh, not so much. But now it looks right. It has some color and some variation. So the emphasis was not just on making it taste good, but making it look wonderful. And in deity cooking, there was such an emphasis. There is a video from the early days of ISKCON. And I remember I would watch it over and over again. And in this video, they would show different ways of dressing deities. But they would also show how they prepared the offering plate for all of the deities. And you'd see they decorate it and have all the puris on one side and all the nice cups of different sabjis. So imagine you've taken out the time to conscientiously prepare this plate. Just as you're offering it, you hear a little sound. So you kind of open your eyes and there's this child, handfuls of rice, just happily enjoying it. Ghee on his face, on his hands. The fortunate Brahmin cried out, alas, alas, this naughty boy has stolen the rice. Jagannath Mishra came there and saw Sri Gaurasundar was smiling as he ate the Brahmin's rice. So not only is this child now eating this rice that was previously prepared for Krishna, but he's smiling, he's happy. In anger, Jagannath Mishra rushed to beat the Lord. The Brahmin, however, got up and apprehensively caught hold of Jagannath Mishra's hand. Mishra, you are supposed to be a cultured Aryan. What is the use of beating this ignorant boy? Only one who can distinguish between right and wrong can be beaten. Therefore, I forbid you from beating this child. Thankfully, thank goodness for the Brahmin. Otherwise, what would have happened to our little Gaur Sundar? Jagannath Mishra sat down in distress, holding his head with his hands. He could not speak or lift his head. Um, this kind of shame is well known to parents. If you've ever had if you've ever been a parent, and then you get, say, your Guru Maharaj visits your home, right? And you've prepared everything really nicely. One of the very few thoughts in a parent's mind is, you want to serve nicely, you try and be humble and imbibe all the qualities of a Vaishnav and make sure that your Guru Maharaj knows that you're doing the right things. But one of the thoughts that goes through a parent's mind is, and please just let this child be well behaved. It's such a meditation, you just think, you're like, just don't say the wrong thing. Don't do the wrong thing. Just sit there. Sit quietly. Don't do anything. But if you do something, please make it spiritual and really cute. And so now Jagannath Mishra, of course, he can't lift his head or say a word, and I get it. I totally get it. Because this child has now spoiled the offering of a sadhu. He's completely mortified. The Brahmin then said, "My dear Mishra, please don't feel sad. Whatever is meant to happen on a particular day is known only to the Lord. Please bring whatever fruits and roots there are in your house, and I will eat those today." So basically, in essence, and I love it when, we have the flowery words and poetic language of these wonderful, wonderful pastimes. We get to, bring them down. Like real talk. Honestly, this Brahmin's like, look, whatever happens on any day, only God knows. It's fine. I can't even begin to make sense of it. But he's such an interesting Brahmin. Like I go wherever my restless mind takes me, but also he's in this mood of complete surrender. His offering has been completely spoiled. And here he is thinking, you know what? It's fine. This must be the will of my Gopal. It's cool. I'll eat the fruits and roots today. I'll fast. Jagannath Mishra said, "If you at all consider me your servant, then please cook again. I will make all the arrangements. We have all the ingredients for cooking in the house. Please cook again. Then I will feel satisfied." All the friends and relatives of Jagannath Mishra present there also requested the Brahmin, "Please be merciful on us and cook again." The Brahmin said, "All right. According to your desire, I will certainly cook again." Everyone there was happy to hear the Brahmin's decision, and they immediately cleaned the kitchen. Because this was a big to-do, right? And in those times, it wasn't as easy as, oh, we've cooked for the family, and now we can cook for God in the same kitchen. Nope, they're going to clean everything spotless to make it right to prepare an offering for Krishna again. They quickly assembled all the ingredients, and the Brahmin began to cook. Everyone concluded, "This child is very restless and may very well spoil the offering again. Therefore, please take him to another house until the Brahmin finishes cooking and eating." Sachi Devi then took her son in her arms and went to the neighbor's house. Now, this is a very well thought out plan. Not just another room. Take him out of the house. Because we understand how restless he is, and we understand how he somehow gets in very interesting places at very interesting times. You might not be able to stop him, so it's okay. All the ladies there said, "Listen, Nimai, you shouldn't have eaten the Brahmin's rice like that." The Lord smiled with his moon-like face and replied, "What is my fault? The Brahmin called me." Everyone then said, "Oh, deceitful Nimai, what will you do now that you have lost your caste? Who knows that Brahmin? What is his caste? Where is he from? Now that you've eaten his rice, how will you maintain your caste?" The Lord smiled and said, "I'm a cowherd boy, and I always eat rice cooked by Brahmins." This is also referring to this wonderful pastime when Sri Krishna was taking the offerings and accepting the food from the Brahmins and the Brahmin, the Yagyapatnis, all the wives of the Brahmins. "I'm a cowherd boy. I'm used to eating wherever. I'm also used to eating from different Brahmanas. No problem." How can a cowherd boy lose his caste by eating a Brahmin's rice? Saying this, the Lord looked at everyone and smiled. In this way, the Lord revealed his identity while speaking deceptively. but by the influence of his Maya, no one could understand him. Everyone laughed upon hearing the Lord's explanation. No one wanted to set him down from their embrace. I do think it very interesting that they tried to teach this small boy the intricacies of social etiquette and caste propriety. As the Lord smiled and sat on various people's laps, whoever held him was merged in an ocean of bliss. Meanwhile, the Brahmin finished cooking again, so he sat down to make the offering. In meditation, the Brahmin called Bal Gopal to eat, and Lord Gaurasundar, the super soul, immediately came to know this. Putting everyone into illusion, the Lord secretly came before the Brahmin with a smile on his face. And in the purport, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that it was a bewildering smile. Unseen by others, the Lord then took a handful of rice and ate it as the Brahmin watched. Once again, I find it interesting that the Brahmin never actually stopped Nimai. He didn't try to discipline anybody else's kid, but he did just helplessly stand by and watch as yet again the offering was consumed before it was meant to be. The Brahmin immediately cried out, "Alas, alas!" And the Lord, after eating the rice, ran away. Enraged, Jagannath Mishra got up, took a stick in his hand, and chased after the Lord in anger. So once again, we have this stick-chasing pastime. It seems to be a regular occurrence for our mischievous Lord. He's always dodging trouble, coming in from a stick. The Lord fearfully fled into another room, with Jagannath Mishra chasing behind him and chastising him in anger. Jagannath Mishra said, "Just wait and see what I'll do to you today. Although I'm an Aryan, you consider me a fool. Although I'm a noble Brahmin, you're making a fool out of me. Who has such a great thief for a son?" Saying this, Jagannath Mishra chased after the Lord in anger. Everyone present tried to restrain Mishra, but he said, "Leave me alone. Today I will beat him." Yikes. They then pleaded, "Oh, Mishra, you are by nature magnanimous. What kind of intelligence would you exhibit by beating him? He doesn't understand what is right and wrong. Whoever beats such a child is a great fool. He will not learn simply by being beaten. Children are all restless by nature." At that time, the mendicant Brahmin hastily came there. Holding the hands of Jagannath Mishra, yet again, he spoke. "Listen, Mishra, this child is not at fault. Whatever is meant to happen on a particular day will certainly take place. Today, Krishna has not allotted me any rice. I'm telling you, this is my realization." Feeling distressed, Jagannath Mishra was unable to raise his head. He looked at the ground and simply lamented. At that time, the most powerful and effulgent Vishvarup came there. So Vishvarup is the elder brother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I know we might be thinking, but isn't Lord Nityananda the elder brother? Yes, also. But Vishvarup was the elder brother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, born to Sachi Devi and Jagannath Mishra. And I am sure that these mystical and mysterious things will be illuminated by Sachinandan Maharaj. And so I won't spoil it. I'll let him tell it because undoubtedly he's going to tell it better. So at that time, the elder brother Vishvarup came there. There is no comparison to the matchless sweetness of Vishvarup's bodily limbs. A Brahmin thread hung on his shoulder. He is the source of the Brahman effulgence, and though in a different form, he is also directly Lord Nityananda. The purport of all scriptures is eternally manifest on the tongue of Vishvarup. Thus he is always engaged in preaching devotional service to Lord Krishna. Seeing his extraordinary beauty, the mendicant Brahmin was struck with wonder and stared at him continuously. The Brahmin then said, "Whose son is this?" The people replied, "He is the son of Jagannath Mishra." The Brahmin was satisfied to hear this. He embraced Vishvarup and remarked, "Glorious are the father and mother of such a son." Vishvarup offered obeisances to the Brahmin. He then sat down and began speaking words that were like a stream of nectar. "Whoever receives a guest like you has attained great fortune on that auspicious day. Although you are self-satisfied, still you travel about to sanctify the world. It is our great fortune that we have a guest like you, but we are also unfortunate because you are fasting. If you fast while staying in someone's house, it will simply bear inauspicious fruits. I am greatly satisfied by seeing you, but I'm very sad to hear about what has happened. The Brahmin said, please do not feel sad. I will eat some fruits and roots. The Brahmin's really like, I'm okay. I live in the forest, so where can I usually get rice? I'm accustomed to eat fruits and roots in the forest. I seldom eat rice, only when it is easily available. I've become so satisfied by seeing you that I feel as if I've eaten millions of meals. Please go and bring any fruits, roots, or prasad that you have, and I'll eat that today. Jagannath Mishra, however, did not speak anything. He just held his head in his hands in distress. Poor Jagannath Mishra is thinking, why? Why do I have such a mischievous son? And they have Vishvarup, who is calming the situation. But he's still in distress because, as I said, a parent's greatest meditation is, oh, child, I pray to the Paramatma within your heart. Just sit quietly. Do nothing even if you have to. Play dead, it's fine. Vishvarup said, I hesitate to speak, but I know that you are an ocean of mercy. It is the nature of saintly persons to be distressed on seeing the sufferings of others. They always try to make others happy. So, if it is not too much trouble, please cook for Krishna again. Then my family's distress will be vanquished, and we will attain transcendental happiness. The Brahmin said, I have already cooked twice, yet Krishna has still not allowed me to eat. I have therefore understood that he has not allotted any rice for me today. If Krishna's sanction is not there, why should we endeavor? This is a very interesting viewpoint of the Brahmin, and a soul completely surrendered unto Krishna, really understanding that whatever is meant for me, Krishna will provide. And if Krishna has not provided somehow, I can accept that this is not meant for me. How many times are we endeavoring somehow against the divine arrangement of Sri Krishna, constantly thinking, oh, but somehow I have to make this happen. And it seems like it's not happening. And so many people would say, it seems to be the will of Krishna that this not happen, but we are so caught up in what we think must happen. Interestingly enough, we see both viewpoints. The viewpoint of the Brahmin is whatever Krishna has arranged, I can easily go with that. I've surrendered myself to Krishna. But Jagannath Mishra and the family are thinking, no, but how can we be said to have performed our duty in taking care of you as a guest? If now you are performing some kind of fast, this upavas, which we are all undergoing today. So I kind of want to observe this Ekadasi fast in the mood of this Brahmin, thinking about this wonderful pastime, thinking this Brahmin was ready to perform an Ekadasi fast just at the will of the Lord on any given day. And Ekadashi is such an endeavor for us. Oh, I have to plan. I need 2 days prior notice. And if I've just looked at the calendar and just found out that it's Ekadashi on that day, then my mind gets involved and oh no, I have to fast. What am I going to do? Did I go shopping properly for this? How is this going to happen? This Brahmin is saying, it's okay. I can easily observe this fast. In fact, I'm used to this fast. This fast is what I do normally. Usually my meals are not so elaborate at all. I worship my Bal Gopal. I can even take some milk. It's fine. Imagine being able to adopt this mindset that we are so engrossed in love for Krishna and thinking about Krishna and worshiping our Krishna and having pastimes with our Krishna that this becomes a joyous occasion. Right? Instead of, now let me think about all my contingency plans and how I am going to make all of this work as the supreme controller, subordinate to the ultimate supreme controller. Now this Brahmin, I'm completely surrendered. It's fine. And the family is thinking, but how can we take care of Asad properly? Let us perform our duty as householders. So, one may have unlimited foodstuffs at home, but he can eat only with Krishna's sanction. If Krishna does not allot anything on some day, then even by endless endeavor, one will never achieve a thing. It is practically the middle of the night. Is it proper to cook at this time? Therefore, do not make any further arrangements for cooking today. I will simply eat some fruits and roots. My brother, he had spent some time with Ayendra Prabhu, and he was saying that Ayendra Prabhu not only had a clock with no hands on it, just to show. I mean, this was a person who was transcendentally above and beyond time. But he had so many. It takes an entire department of brahmacharis and pujaris to perform the seva that Ayendra Prabhu was doing solo. And he would perform that seva, and perform his kirtan seva, and perform his japa seva, and then would often find himself making offerings in the middle of the night, which you would only know it was the middle of the night by the surroundings, because he had a clock with no hands on it to tell the time. And so it would often be middle of the night, and he'd just be moving his offering from his deities. But he would joyfully, still happily distribute the maha. So this Brahmin is, when he says, is this proper to cook at this time? I think about all of our spiritual teachers and all of those wonderful personalities. I've heard, we've spoken about Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. And he would often cook in the middle of the night, and people would say, oh, Baba, you're cooking such nice meals, but in the middle of the night and sometimes in the daytime, you should make some concerted effort to have a steady schedule. And he would say, who am I to know when it's day or night? Who am I to know when am I their father's cook in their father's house to be able to know when is the proper time to cook for them? All I do is I simply serve them. They are taking care of me, but somehow they allow me to also help them. So these are our spiritual teachers. When you get into this point where you're so engrossed in devotional service that time simply means that now your worshipful lords are performing a different pastime at this time. We're not thinking anymore according to our schedule and what's convenient for us. Now we're at the whims of our Supreme Person. Vishvarup said, there will be no fault if you cook. Everyone will be satisfied. Saying this, Vishvarup caught hold of the Brahmin's feet, and everyone else also requested him to cook. Enchanted by the entire family, especially Vishvarup, the Brahmin replied, all right, I'll cook. Everyone expressed their satisfaction by chanting the name of Hari. They then quickly cleaned the kitchen again and brought all the ingredients for cooking. The Brahmin then began to cook, and everyone escorted Nimai to another room. Jagannath Mishra sat in front of the door where the child was detained. Yes, detained is the word they used, like jail. Detention. Everyone said, lock the door from the outside so that he cannot get out. Jagannath Mishra said, that is a good idea. Thus Jagannath Mishra and others sat outside after latching the door. From inside the room, the ladies said, don't worry, Nimai is sleeping. He won't do anything now. As they guarded the child in this way, the Brahmin soon finished cooking. The pious Brahmin prepared a plate for offering and then sat in meditation and offered the food to Krishna. The super soul, Sri Sachinandan, knew everything. He had already decided to give darshan to the Brahmin. Thus, by the will of the Supreme Lord, Nidra Devi, the goddess of sleep, cast her spell so that everyone fell into deep sleep. Sri Sachinandan then went to the place where the Brahmin was making his offering. On seeing the child, the Brahmin called out, alas, alas, but no one heard him, for they were all asleep. The Lord said, O Brahmin, you are indeed magnanimous. You call me, so what is my fault? You chant my mantra and invite me, so I cannot resist coming to you. You always desire to see me, so here I am. At that time, the Lord exhibited a wonderful 8-armed form to the Brahmin. In 4 hands he held a conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower. In one hand he held a pot of butter, from which he ate with another hand. Then with 2 hands he played a flute. He was decorated with the mark of Srivatsa, while the Kaustubha gem and jeweled necklace hung on his chest. All of his limbs were decorated with jeweled ornaments. His head was decorated with a garland of fresh gunja seeds and a peacock feather. His moon-like face was beautified by his reddish lips. The Lord smiled as he rolled his eyes. His Vaijayanti flower garland and shark-shaped earrings swayed to and fro. His lotus feet were adorned by jeweled ankle bells, and all darkness was dissipated by the shining of his toenails. The Brahman also saw the abode of Vrindavan filled with wonderful kadamba trees and the chirping of various birds. He saw cowherd boys and girls in all directions. Indeed, whatever he had meditated on, he saw manifest before him. Seeing the extraordinary opulence, the pious Brahman fell unconscious with ecstasy. Lord Gaurasundar, the ocean of mercy, then placed his lotus hand on the body of the Brahman. By the touch of the Lord, the Brahman regained consciousness. Though in ecstasy, he remained inert and unable to speak. The Brahmin repeatedly fell unconscious to the ground and then got up in great jubilation. His body shivered and perspired, and his hairs stood on end. The flow of tears from his eyes resembled the Ganges River. The Brahman then caught hold of the Lord's lotus feet and began to cry loudly. Seeing the Brahman's humility, Lord Gaurasundar smiled and addressed him. The Lord said to him, "Please listen, O Brahman. You have been my servant for many lifetimes. You always desired to see me. Therefore, I have come before you. In a previous life, I gave you darshan at the house of Nanda Maharaj. Don't you remember? When I appeared in Gokula, you also joyfully visited the various holy places. By providence, you became a guest one day in the house of Nanda Maharaj. At that time, you offered rice to me in the same way, and after I ate your rice, I showed you this same form. In this way, you have been my servant birth after birth. For other than my servants, no one can see this form. I have thus disclosed to you confidential topics that should not be revealed to anyone under any condition." And yet, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat has this for us all to see. I mean, thankfully, someone broke the rules, but as long as I remain in this incarnation, you should not tell anyone the secrets that I have told you. Otherwise, I personally will kill you. Oh my. I have incarnated to inaugurate the Sankirtan movement, and I will preach this process of chanting throughout the world. I will freely distribute the love and devotion that is desired by Brahma and others to each and every house. If you remain here for some time, you will see many such pastimes, but do not disclose these things to anyone. In this way, after mercifully pacifying the Brahmin, Lord Gaurasundar returned to his room. The Lord then returned to sleep as a child, and by the influence of Yoga Nidra, no one awoke. The Brahmin's entire body was filled with ecstasy after seeing that wonderful manifestation of the Lord. He smeared the rice all over his body and began to cry as he ate it. He danced, he sang, he laughed, and repeatedly called out, "Jai Bal Gopal, Jai Bal Gopal." Everyone woke up by the loud cries of the Brahmin, who then controlled himself and washed his hands. Seeing that the Brahmin had eaten without disturbance, everyone was greatly satisfied. The Brahmin thought, "Perhaps I should disclose to everyone what has happened, so that they may be delivered by coming to know the Supreme Lord." Let us not forget what Sri Gaurasundar had just told the Brahmin. Let's see. The Lord who is sought after by Brahma and Shiva has advented himself in this Brahmin's house. Let me tell them that this very child is the Supreme Lord, so that they may be delivered. But the Brahmin feared breaking the Lord's order and therefore did not disclose this incident to anyone. Wise man. After recognizing his Lord, the Brahmin secretly remained near the Lord in Navadvip. He would beg alms here and there and come daily to see the Lord. One who hears these wonderful topics that are confidential to the Vedas certainly attains the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. The topics of Adikanda are like a flow of nectar, for these topics describe Lord Narayan's pastimes as a child. So on this wonderful Ekadasi day, I pray that the words of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur become true for each and every one of us, that one who hears these confidential topics very quickly, very, very quickly, and certainly attains the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. One point that I wanted to end with is, what happens? What does it look like when we actually receive what we've prayed for? This Brahmin had been worshipping Lord Balgopal for so many years. Finally, when Sri Gaurasundar was in front of him, he didn't recognize him at first. What happens when we get what we pray for, but we don't even recognize it? Then we are the ones calling out, "Alas, alas, my Lord has abandoned me." Or, "Alas, alas, why is my Lord behaving with me in such a way? Why is my Lord so mischievous with me? Why is he upending my life?" Meanwhile, we are getting often what we have prayed for. Sometimes what we have prayed for is the wherewithal to release certain things that are unnecessary for our lives. Then when those things leave our lives, we lament. How could this have happened? Oh no, I can't believe that Krishna has taken this away from me. Krishna's thinking you were just praying for release. It is so difficult to release the things that we've prayed to release. I want to remember this wonderful and mysterious pastime of the Brahman and Nimai, so that I can remember. Let me be on the lookout for when Krishna actually fulfills the things that I've prayed for. Let me adopt this mood of this Brahman, that this is Krishna's will. If it is leaving my life, then maybe this is Krishna's will. Maybe this austerity has come upon me out of Krishna's divine arrangement and mercy. Let me somehow see his merciful hand in this. Because oftentimes when I get exactly what I've prayed for, I become a brat. I throw the tantrums. I'm the one kicking and screaming, running after God with a stick. I'll teach you a lesson this day. I can't believe you've messed with me in such a way. Consummate, like fiery New Yorker. Don't mess with me. But this is often what I've prayed for. So I also pray that when we receive what we have prayed for, we have the wherewithal, we have the divine knowledge to be able to see it as Krishna's mercy. I pray that we'll be able to see Krishna's divine arrangement in our lives and not be bitter or angry by it, but enlivened and enthused that Krishna is having pastimes with us. Pastimes that maybe we won't even fully understand until years later, but these are pastimes that Krishna is having with us. This is our Lord entering into our life. This is our Ekadasi. Shri Gaura Chandra ki jai, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Gaura Sundar ki jai, Shri Radha Murlidhara ki jai, Ekadasi Devi ki jai. All glories to all of you wonderful Vaishnavas. Thank you, thank you, thank you for always having me and bearing with me.
Thank you, Acyuta Gopi. Acyuta Gopi, tell us about your new look. Tell us the significance.
I kind of really, I was honestly really thinking about how much time I give to certain things in my life, and the over 12 hours of maintenance often that it was taking to maintain was kind of making me feel like, what if I dedicated that time to japa? So now, in the same vein, right? In the same vein, I've had to recalibrate my spiritual GPS. Because what happens when you take a chance and you decide to fully surrender to Krishna and it works out? Usually when we think about surrender, it's like, oh, but if it doesn't work and then I just have to deal with it, right? But what if it works out? So now that it has worked and Krishna has decided, he's like, watch, everyone will think it's very cool. So now everybody's like, oh, it's so cool. But now, am I actually remembering why I did this? Or am I just thinking, it's like, but now it's very cool, And I go on about my life and put other things in those 12 hours instead of the japa that I was supposed to be putting in. So I'm also still trying to remember what was the actual reason for me doing this was surrender. It was in a mood of wanting to engage myself more, be more hungry for the holy name, be more hungry for maintenance of my spiritual life, as hungry as I was for maintaining my appearance. So now I'm trying to live on the other side of when Krishna works out your blessings and makes these moments of surrender into a wonderful outcome, to not forget that the goal is devotional service. And my aim was devotional service. So thank you for reminding me.
Beautiful, thank you. I knew there was spiritual significance behind it. Does anyone else have a reflection, maybe a question? Bhima Prabhu. When are you shaving up?
Why do you do this to me?
We want you to shave. We want you to shave up, Bhima Prabhu.
They never get what they want. They're never satisfied with what they get. It's always the next step up, and that's like that's like with us. All we got to do is turn around and realize that we're never really satisfied with our Krishna consciousness until we can take that next step up. And that next step up is what Acyuta Gopi said. That next step up is to simply let go of the previous step and let go of the things that we hold dear, and to give it over to Krishna, so that when he does take them away, as he will, because I was musing the other day, due to certain circumstances surrounding me, that we are all going to find ourselves on our deathbed. It happens. You just find years swoop by, and you find yourself in that moment that I can't remember who said it the other day, maybe it was Adi Purush, that Kurukshetra moment where we actually are all alone with Krishna on that battlefield overlooking our past life. As one who has had a lot given and has had a lot taken away, I will tell you the taking away is much sweeter, because Krishna pours in. He pours in. When that cup empties, Krishna pours in. So that's all I had to say. Acyuta Gopi reminded me of that when she said, Krishna, we pray to be released. We pray for liberation. And then when Krishna takes it away, when he takes what we think is an offering away and eats it himself, and you have nothing, you still have Krishna to look at. So that's what I took away from it. Haribol.
Yeah, I feel as though Krishna never actually leaves us bereft, That's our faulty vision of surrender, where it's like, oh, I give everything to my divine supreme person, and then they take it all away. They leave me with nothing. That's our minds, trying to trick us into this idea that we never should surrender, never give up. But I try to remember all of our examples. This Brahmin, the Brahmin, even he says, we've been doing this for a long time, you and I. This stealing offerings business, we've been doing this. It's even happened in Nanda Maharaj's house. So this idea that we've been doing this for so many lifetimes and holding on and trying to control our surrender so much. But yeah, because we're so afraid that we hear Krishna takes away everything from those that he likes the most, but he doesn't actually leave anybody bereft ever. This is our Lord. He's Akila Rasamrita Murti. He's able to fulfill all the desires of all the living entities, all uniquely, all separately, all at the same time. And everyone is fully satisfied. And there's no loss or diminution to him whatsoever. And we somehow think, oh, when he takes away my little paltry money or my little paltry, objects, my possessions, then he's going to leave me with nothing. And that's my Lord who is able to give pleasure to all the cows and senses. This is the one they name Govinda. It seems a little incongruous. So when we remember these pastimes in Bali Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj and so many other devotees, countless devotees, we have a full Srimad Bhagavatam which is there to teach us. Yes, Krishna may take things away. The things that he decides he will take away. But they probably weren't good for you anyway. But what he gives us is 1 million unlimitedly times better if we trust. And I saw a quote yesterday from a Christian. And they said, I want to learn to trust God, not in retrospect, but in the happening, like in the time when it's happening. I want to start to exercise my faith when it's happening and not simply in retrospect, like, oh, should have had faith then. Look how it all worked out. But I want to have that same faith, and I want to remember who my friend is when it's happening. And remember that this is Krishna. This is his mercy.
Andrea.
Hare Krishna, dear Acyuta Gopi Dasi, Prabhu. I feel like I'm like in a revival meeting because I'm like, yes, yes, amen. I was so moved by how you took this beautiful story that I've told to the children, but then didn't see that greater kind of lesson to it of understanding that when we pray to Krishna for things, that these things will manifest in ways that sometimes we don't understand. And it really hit me, especially when you just shared right now about having faith and not having it just be in retrospect, because that's really where I have been. You know, I remember now, like now I look back and I think, oh, you know, in May of 2018, I went to when Satchidananda Swami had the Living Name retreat in New Vrindavan. I went to that retreat and I was so into like what he was giving that I did the Sankalpa ritual at the end. And I still actually have the string where he asked each of us, like, you know, what do you really want Krishna to give you? And I remember at the time being like, yes, Krishna, like, I'm ready to surrender. Please, like, help me have more time for sadhana, help me, da, da, da. And then I think I just, like, even though I have the string on, like, I forgot about what I had actually asked. And then it didn't realize until now when you were speaking that year is the year that I got really, really ill, like very, very ill. And I had to leave working full time. You know, things started getting arranged where like my husband and I had to leave New York for my health and all these things. And as much as I was trying to be surrendered, I didn't understand how that had actually been Krishna answering that prayer until you started saying that. I didn't connect the dots, especially with you mentioning Satchidananda Swami in the beginning about how he's going to tell the stories. And it just like all of a sudden just flooded into my head. And I realized, wow, Krishna's mercy is so great. Like you said, my job was not really important. Like having, like before, I remember being like, oh, I wish I could attend classes, but I can never attend them because I have to go to work. I have to commute. Instead, now I get to sit every single day and have the sadhana and have the sangha, you know, and I have time for japa and I have time for all these things. And yes, you know, I'm not going to say I'm like a saintly person and I'm like, whatever, like I have pain, I have my health problems, but they're sweet in a way, you know, like they're, I see why, and I see how he's answered. So I don't want to take up more time, but I just want to thank you so much. And I'm just very moved and I'm just so grateful. So thank you so much.
And that's Krishna. That is Krishna consciousness. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because, you know, my theory has always been, you look at Krishna taking away certain things, even up to a certain person's health. But then when you speak to that person and they are actively under Krishna's shelter, they all sound exactly like you. Everybody's saying, this is sweet though. This is the sweetest time of my life. Even Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, they're like, we were happier 13 years in the forest, actually, than ruling over this kingdom because we had Krishna every day. And everybody's thinking, but, you know, God arranged it and you had everything taken away from you. It's like, but we had Krishna. We had a hut and nobody to bother us. We didn't have to be administrators. We didn't have to do anything. All we had to do was be with our Krishna. And everybody says the same thing somehow, that, but the taking away, like Bhima Prabhu said, he said, no, but this is sweet. This is a sweet time in my life. And so I pray to not forget that this is what I prayed for. How can I see this as what I prayed for? Even when it feels hard, especially when it feels hard, when we're looking at it, when it first goes away and we're clinging like Draupadi with that one sari, you know, with one hand, with her teeth, with whatever. And Krishna said, give it, give it. You were praying for this. You called me so many times with all your heart. You called me, give it. And that first moment, we're thinking it's so painful and it stings and it's frightening. And then it all works out. And those are the times that go down in history. So I pray that you will write these realizations down, because I feel like we need them. It's not for you. You've already got it. We need them. We need the realizations. And I pray that I never forget that this is what I prayed for and that these times are sweet. These are pastimes.
Beautiful. This is applied Krishna consciousness. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Andrea, thanks for being vulnerable, and thanks for inspiring us. And your steadiness with your good attitude, selflessness. Andrea is an angel. Okay, would anyone else like to share anything?
I want to add something.
Angelica.
First of all, this is just so beautiful to watch just your interactions, and thank you so much, Andrea, for sharing as well. I'm very touched by both of you, and that's true actually. Like, we need those realizations, and there are so many devotees who have amazing realizations, and they just never share them. And so I'm looking forward to them. Maybe you can even write a book. I know you could. I wanted to just say something that has been circulated back to me, and I've been hearing it over and over from many people. And first I was annoyed, and I realized actually it's just so important. That's why I'm hearing it so much. But it's sharing by His Holiness Raghunath Swami about a broken heart, and it's just this teaching of a broken heart that first of all, it's such a painful time, but when we experience a broken heart, the heart actually breaks open, and we are able to receive more. And also when it finally mends, and especially that's such an opportunity to then call to Krishna. But when the heart mends back again, then the weakest part previously becomes the strongest. And I can see it here also in Andrea's case, like all those challenges, now you're showing up every day and giving us your association, and really are this symbol of steadiness and patience and enthusiasm on the path of spiritual service. So thank you so much, and thank you, Acyuta Gopi, for your wonderful class. I really love your honesty and your metaphors, like the angry New Yorker. It's something I can connect to so much. So yeah, and even the fact that you're speaking about how the parent experiences the child. Of course, I've never been a parent in this lifetime, so even that can really bring me closer to the importance of this detail and this pastime. So I really appreciate.
Yeah, and I even if you've never been a parent, you've been the child in question when the parents look and they say, "Look, so and so is coming. You sit there, don't move, don't speak, don't touch anything." Little Nimai was doing all the things. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
I want to say one more thing. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a quick appreciation. I just want to say that I just saw Will cry on a camera, and I want to say thank you so much for being touched and showing yourself so vulnerably.
Nice. Gopi, when you were speaking, I was thinking the entire time, Ananda Bihari, don't be so cheap. Don't be so cheap. Give it.
You know Krishna. What it is? I'm a parent, and so far these two Matajis, they're not from this earth. They're sages. I want to raise my children in Krishna consciousness. I was not raised in Krishna consciousness, and yet Krishna gave me a gift. He gave me two beautiful children, and I have this wonderful opportunity to raise them in Krishna consciousness. And hearing these two talks, it draws me closer to Krishna, and I just want to thank Krishna for you, for both of you, Leela, and you, of course, of all the devotees. I want to draw closer to all devotees. Because it's something that I want to do. I want to draw closer to Krishna. In order to do that, I need to get closer to the devotees. So thank you.
Good, William, aka Francesco, Michael. We know you under so many names. Okay, thank you, everybody. Wonderful association. Thank you for keeping your cameras on. Akiko-chan, good to see you. William, Andrea, Angelica, everybody, thank you so much. Stay tuned for Satchidananda Swami's session today. The link is in the chat. And yeah, this is our reality. Let's all see how this is what we've been praying for. anything that happens, you asked for it, right?
Yeah.
That's my takeaway. Thank you, Acyuta Gopi. Hare Krishna. Everyone, good night. Goodbye. Hare Krishna. Sorry.
Hare Krishna.